Hey everybody, it's Adam with Ox's Auditorium, and today I want to bring you something a little bit different than what I planned on having on this channel. There is a project on Kickstarter that just finished recently, had a successful campaign. It is their first campaign they've ever done before. So the campaign is Uprising Curse of the Last Emperor, and it is done by Nemesis Games. And it's just a project that I've been super passionate about and is just really becoming honestly one of my favorite games, and I don't even have the game yet. So I just wanted to kind of go over some tabletop simulator stuff, as the company has spent a lot of time creating the mod for the game in order for you to be able to play. So I do know, hopefully when this video releases, that there'll still be late pledges, or depending when you're watching it, there'll still be late pledges available to jump in, as the game is a Kickstarter exclusive game at this time, because they're just a new company startup, however you want to word it. And it is quite the production. There's going to be a lot of kind of like hybrid acrylic standee miniature things that are very appealing to me. And then it is a 4X co-op game, which is what's really kind of interesting me, like it really pulled me in. And I think the gameplay is fantastic. It's a tough co-op, which I like, and it really makes you work as a team with it. So you'll see that. Like I said, I want to do the setup because I think there's a disconnect. I noticed there's been people that have stated that they're maybe intimidated or don't understand, or like the dots aren't connecting for them, and from the rulebook to Tabletop Simulator, because a lot of stuff in Tabletop Simulator is automated. So I'm going to run through a setup. And that's what this video is going to be, is just the setup part, and how do you get from basically owning Tabletop Simulator to playing Uprising. And then I'll probably do some playthroughs. I'm no rules like guru, but I have played a good amount of times now that I feel confident enough to do some playthroughs, but obviously I might get some things wrong as well. So obviously make a comment. If I did, we can always go back and correct it, things like that, do a little edit or something like that. So that being said, you will need Tabletop Simulator. So once you have purchased that, you can see here, if you've never installed a workshop mod before, I'll kind of walk you through the brief thing of that, walkthrough of that. So you'll have your game here. You'll go ahead and select your game, and then in the game here, you're going to hit Workshop. When you're in the workshop here, then the search Tabletop Simulator, you're going to go ahead and type in Uprising and go ahead there. So now you can see this is the game right here. It's got the 4 stars rated. I already have it installed. I have the check marker subscribed to. But when you haven't done it yet, you can go ahead and hit that green plus. And when you hit that green plus, it'll just show like this, and boom, it's installed. So that is pretty simple. You can go back to your library then, and then you'll be right back on here if you just click this library button. And then we'll go ahead and jump into the game here. You'll get a pop-up, or there might be sometimes an install or whatever. So go ahead and finish that. Once you go through there, we'll wait for it to load. And now, depending on if you're playing with multiple players or not, you're going to go ahead and create and then hit single or multiple players. Multiple players puts you actually on a server. So you can see here, I've got some other workshop mods in here that I've installed, but go ahead and just click on Uprising and hit load. So you'll let it load in all of the stuff, and then this is obviously going to be the view you see when you load, because that's where I did it from. Okay, going over just a couple things. They did an excellent job of putting some resources in the game itself, or in this mod itself. So if you go ahead and click this help button, you have placement aids, combat aids, dice, and shortcuts. So placement aids are super helpful when you're playing, because it's going to show you how you place legions and how you activate legions and the priorities for it. So it's a really quick reference, and it's super nice to be able to see. Same thing with hordes, and then skeletons, curses, things like that, activation tokens. So just a nice little overview there. Next one down, combat aid. This is basically like your flow sheet of how combat works, and you'll learn this really quick. And it kind of shows the different terrain effects as well. So you know, before combat, archery round, clash round, repeat clash round after combat. And then these icons, just so you know, will also show up on the cards and items and feats in your game, which signify when you can do those different items and things like that. So kind of once you decide which round you're in, then you can follow here. So you know, you have a before combat, you have an archery round. In the archery round, you follow these steps. Make note of terrain. Then you're going to go to clash round. Clash round also then follows these same exact steps and keeping a note terrain again. And then you just kind of repeat until there's not two factions left on the same tile. The dice, just a nice little dice distribution because the dice are different for different things, obviously. So if you're trying to do quests that need shields and lightning, well, you're definitely not going to want to roll the yellow or orange die. Obviously, it looks orange here. I think it's supposed to be yellow in the actual game, but that's neither here nor there. You'll learn these really fast once you play a couple times. And then the last thing I want to show you here is the shortcuts. So these are super helpful. I will be using them in my playthroughs, so I just want to make note of what they are. Now, they are for your keypad only. So if you're playing on a laptop that does not have like a number pad, these won't work because the numbers across the top of your keyboard are separate than your numpad shortcuts. So these are for specifically your number pad. Let's get that off. Okay. So that is that. Now, the other thing that's very, very helpful is the phases. So this is going to basically walk you through the game when we get to that point. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and load the refresh phase, as that is the very first phase of the game. So that's kind of some helpful tools that you can look at. There are like little hero drop downs where you can look at the different heroes to the game. And then there are also like the different hordes. So if you want to check out the different hordes they have, or legions, those are what those tabs are. But when you get in, the first thing you're basically going to want to do is choose which faction you are. Now, in a single player game, it doesn't matter where you are. But obviously, if you hit change color here, you can choose your faction that you want to play at. So you default in as white if you are the first player. Excuse me. And so what that does, though, is if you're playing in a multiplayer game where multiple people are joining your game, you can see that I am sitting at white. So once you've picked your faction, so just for simplicity's sake, yes, you can play solo, as I've stated, but when playing solo, you will have to play two-handed. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to just set up as these two factions on the board here. So in the normal game, you will actually collect all this stuff. So you will collect your starting home tile, and you'll collect 5 of each resource and your action points. And then for this case of the game, we actually have to we have to choose your hero. So the heroes are double-sided. So how you flip a card is the F hotkey. Oops, and I had all those highlighted, so those flipped. So you will choose which hero you want for your faction. So when you decide that, the other heroes, like tokens and items and feats, all that can actually go away. Let's go ahead and drop this stuff in. You can normally just highlight them all. I did not do that right the first time. Now, another thing that's confusing is I can't move this. Why? Well, there are some auto-locked items down. So how you unlock an item is you hit the L button, or the L key. So once you do that, now you can see this moves. Now, to warn you, maybe you're like me and was like, okay, well, underneath this deck, I know which deck I'm using. I don't need this. Well, if you get rid of this, this is the like art placeholder for all your cards. So if you throw this in this bag, all of these cards are going to go, I think when it happened to me, it went either white or black, completely solid on the back side. So you'll just want to keep that there. So I will also now take my token here and place it on the points victory points track. There are a lot of snap features, as you can see, that kind of snapped into place. That's very helpful. So just kind of keep in mind what's highlighting where, and then you'll know if you're kind of dropping in the right spot. Also, each character has 2 starting feats. So if you go ahead and right click and then hit search, you'll be able to pop up this window. So for example, you can see here, this says, oops, this says start. I can't really move my mouse too much. That says start on there. So if you're going to grab this card, and it is very small like this, but as you can see, if you just hover, I'm not holding, clicking anything, I'm just hovering, it'll zoom in for you. The other way to zoom in on cards is by pressing and holding Alt. So we're going to go ahead and just take this card and grab it. So you click and hold and drag out. And you will get better about spotting the other start cards without even having to zoom in on all of them. For example, I can see this is the other start card because that little start icon on the little like border there is actually pretty apparent for when you're looking at the cards, and you'll get used to that. So we got kind of that. This is about as far as we can get until we do further setup with the board, but it is definitely helpful to get your player set up. So once again, you'll be sitting here choosing a player. So I'll go ahead and flip over here, choose this player. I'm going to do this correctly where I drop all of them in at once. And then we're going to go ahead and unlock this deck card, drop that in there. Get the turn track all the way over there and search here as well. So we can see that we have the start card here and the start card here. And we'll go ahead and flip those over. And another key thing is the decks all need to be shuffled then. So if you hit R, it shuffles. If you hit E or Q, it rotates your object that you're either highlighting, grabbing, or whatever. You can set how drastic it rotates by, so like I was at 90, so now I'm at 15. So you can see it doesn't flip 90 degrees. But in this game, typically you're going to need either stuff 90 or 60, as there will be some tiles that you can rotate when we come to that point, but not in this video. That would be in a playthrough. So we're going to go ahead and just shuffle these decks here. I also like to then shuffle all the other decks in the game because I get the feeling that it loads the same deck in the same way each time. So in order to shuffle these, because of the chest style, you just have to right click and hit shuffle. And that's going to go ahead and shuffle those for you. So you have to do that also with the chests, so all the tiles, and then also with the graveyards. So if you just hit, so I'll just go ahead and show you. So if you hit search, the executioner here is first. So like if I draw one card from there, it's going to be the executioner. So now if I go ahead and hit shuffle a couple times, and then we hit search, now it's the Spy Master. So that does work, even though you don't have any gratification of like the cards flipping or anything like that. But that's that. So another thing you're going to have is the stand-in cards. So they're really nice, but they seem to mess with when you hit the quick setup button, which I'll be showing you here in a second. So I just go ahead and place those on the skull cards. So if this is your first time playing, you're not going to be using these red skull cards, which are kind of set out separate from all the other piles. Why that is, that's basically like the hardest difficulty mode they have. And so you'll need definitely some playthroughs to get through there. I'm kind of just working from beginner to normal mode currently, and I have about, I think, like 6 playthroughs now, or at least attempts. I should say a couple of them ended really fast. But you do learn. One other little glitch I've noticed, when you hit Alt to look at the level 1 events, they appear sideways. So if you're looking at this event, it's correct. And no, it's not a rotation thing. If I rotate it, it still shows incorrectly. So until they get that fixed, a little trick is I just place out all of these like so. And when you drag and highlight, so you can see the yellow outline, we have them all, click and hold. When you shake your mouse, it like kind of shuffles and stacks them. And for some reason, now when I flip this over, pick up the stack, drop it back, and now I hit Alt, it's corrected it. So if anyone knows what's going on there, that'd be awesome. And maybe it's something simple that I've just missed, but I go ahead and do that. So now that we have a lot of this shuffled, I'm going to focus in on this these bags up here. So you have 2, 3, well, there's 2 different 3s, and then a 4-player easy setup. And all you have to do is hit that little like button there where it kind of highlights there, and that's going to do most of the setup for you in the game. Now, if you've played a couple games and you've done the setup for this, and you're like, okay, Adam, I'm ready to move on to normal, all you have to do is hit, however many players you have. So if it's 2 or 3 or 4, and then you hit upgrade to normal after that. And once you do that, it will upgrade for you. And you'll see what happens here in a second, because I'm going to go ahead and hit that for us. So the 2-player setup, boom. So as you can see, it pulls out all these click me icons. Now, I don't actually have to click. You just have to hover over, and it's going to then fill in what is required to be there for setup. And this helps immensely. So you're not searching through all these chests, trying to grab random ones, then trying to drag them out. And it definitely creates a unique board each time. Also, getting rid of that holder card now allows you to actually highlight over those. If you don't do that, you'll see the click me icon, but it won't work until you move that placeholder card. So now we have our hordes here. Oops. You can shuffle those if you want. And then we also need to grab our druids. So depending on how many chapters you're going to play, you're going to draw druids. So if it's the very first time, I recommend just 2. But if you're going to play a full game, you'll need 4 druids out. Now, with 2 of us just playing, this is where the rotating card kind of comes into play. Well, I have it face no one that's over there. So we'll go ahead and rotate these twice to have them all face us, or me in this case. And then I would say draw quests and items, but that's actually part of the refresh phase. So you'll be doing that in the refresh phase, so it's not part of setup. Now, though, we can grab now our starting tiles. So we'll go ahead and place our 2 factions starting tiles from our play area. And then we're going to go ahead and not lock in, but place the havens. So you're going to grab your haven. You always grab from left to right on the havens, and that's because, as you can see here, as we uncovered the first haven, our resources now kind of increase or change on what we're getting. So now we're going from 1 and 2 to 1 and 3. And then if we move this, you would actually like place it on another tile, right? So now we would, if you have 2 havens on the board, you then jump from 1 and 3 to 1, 2, and 3. So it's better as you go building more havens, obviously, for resources wise. So we put out our havens. Now we're going to grab our character standee, our hero, and set that out. Another little trick I've learned is going back to that lock function. So I showed you how to unlock the card that was sitting here to get rid of it. Well, in the case of the board, what is helpful is to drag and highlight to select all your troops. Because if you have, let's just say you have all these troops here, you have all these sword sisters on a tile. Well, when you go to try and to select, and you're on a haven, it's going to select that haven as well. So what I do, and sometimes you can accidentally, like, if you have tiles like this, and then you grab this tile, and then it shakes, and then stuff falls, and then you're trying to place it down, it gets messy. So what I like to do is actually lock all of these tiles down, because you don't manipulate them a lot through the game. And honestly, the starting havens I do the same with, and also the capital garrison, because you're not really going to manipulate those a whole lot. So now I can drag and highlight and drop just fine. And then if I also accidentally click on this, I can't screw up the game state with it being there. So that's a little trick I learned. And so if you have troops then on your capital, and you go to and drag to highlight, you can just go ahead and move everyone. So the tiles here also, you can see how these don't highlight and this does. That means this one's not locked yet. So we'll go ahead and lock that. I also just locked all these guys, so I'll have to unlock them here. And so that's just a little trick I learned playing. I definitely recommend doing it, but it's not necessary. So, but after a couple mess ups like I've had, you'll definitely be like, okay, let's lock those tiles down. But we actually have the hordes out now. We have our legion ready to go. We have our map state created for 2 players. Oh, I'll go ahead and show you that upgrade to normal as well quick. So we hit upgrade to normal. Now we get the extra garrisons that if you just hover over and the 2 curses, you will have that set up there. We'll actually go ahead and send these back because this isn't technically part of setup. That was just an example. This is now set up correctly for a 2-player normal board. We have our druids out. We have, like I said, our horde. Our players are ready to go with our starting feats, and resources have been, well, they're already there for you. So that makes it easy, but that's as easy as it is to set up a game of Uprising. So if you have any questions, please reach out. I am very active in their Facebook group. So if you're interested in the game and haven't kickstarted it yet, you still have the opportunity, and go ahead and join that Facebook group that they have. I hope that, at least I'm very active in it, and I hope that a lot of people will become active, helping each other out, answering questions, things like that. I think this might help get a couple more people to play the Tabletop Simulator mod. So I'm hoping if there's any feedback you have on stuff I can do. I am fairly new to this whole video making business type thing. So I happily take critiques on what I can do to improve. So let me know. But you are ready to play Uprising. And like I said, I will do some run through videos. I don't know when they'll be out. I'll try to do them as fast as possible, but can't really promise it'll be like tomorrow or anything like that. So but for the most part, like I said, go check out Uprising. You can still late pledge. It's a fantastic game that I think I'm going to wait for a full review on it until I actually have the physical copy in hand with the final components and things like that, as components to me are important in games. So that does play a factor into kind of the nostalgia of playing a board game for me. So I'll wait for the review on that, but I am very, very excited for this to hit. Kind of get here, get to me, get to my table. So, like I said, any questions, reach out, join the Facebook group, check them out, and we'll talk to you later, and we'll see you next time.